late.
That's okay.
It is 1:03. We will begin with the Register of Deeds for the 2022 budget hearing.
All right, thank you. I'm Becky Neosi, the Shawnee County Register of Deeds. Our mission is to serve the public and preserve the records of all real estate-related transactions with professionalism and courtesy to all our constituents in a fiscally responsible way. I tried to memorize that. It's a mouthful. So we record real estate documents primarily. We also have UCC filings, tax liens, and we have the honor to record military discharges. So a lot of veterans don't know they can bring in their DD-214 to us for safekeeping. We help with the tax records and business and residential development and title abstracts. KSA 58-2221 requires that we record documents immediately. So we don't have wiggle room on that. We may have 80 documents in one day or up to 250. We still have to record all of those immediately. And it's vital for our economy and our tax rolls. We've streamlined operations since I've been in office and since I took office in 2013. We changed our staff hours, our phones, our processing. We converted 2.6 million images that should say from microfilm into digital images. So that not only helps our office, we're not running back to the microfilm 20 times a day, helps our searchers. We have around 30 customers who search our records at home that have a subscription. We also have a pay-per-use search process that people can use if they only have one or two searches. And we're able to streamline and do things efficiently because our staff has over 90 years of experience. So we're able to have a skeleton crew with 3 staff members. But I'm getting a little bit worried about that because a couple of them are able to retire. And so we need to start thinking about succession planning. Wyandotte County, for example, is a smaller county than ours, and they have 6 staff members. So we need to start thinking about that. I've always asked for a flat budget and made it through with a flat budget. Commissioner Cook can tell you. One year I even asked for no office supplies so my budget wouldn't be cut, and he was kind enough to make sure I had office supplies that year. But things have changed this year with the real estate market changing. As you know, we've had some days double the volumes of documents. Like I said, on a slow day it's 80, and that was our average day a few years ago. Busy days were up to 250 documents. We recorded 30,847 documents in 2020. We have to examine those documents, make sure there are no errors. We index them. Then after we've indexed them and recorded them, we audit them to make sure we didn't miss something. If it's a paper document, we have even more work to handle that. We might go through all that just to reject it. Goes back to the submitter, they make the corrections, it comes back to us. That can happen 2 or 3 times. So there's a lot of work, it's very labor intensive. We have increased our e-recording like I mentioned. In 2013 we were at 35% and now we're at 80%. So e-recording does help us streamline, but like I said, we're still kind of struggling. And staff is able to handle 10,000 documents per employee per year, but it's pushing them, I think, a little bit too much. And our revenues have exceeded budget in the past year and also are expected to this year. In 2021, I'm expecting 700,000 over what was previously budgeted. And then 2022, I just have a conservative estimate of 300,000, just because we don't know what the real estate market is going to do next year. But I'm still expecting it to remain active. Originally, when I submitted my budget, I had put a little more than this, but we have slowed down a little bit. So I just wanted to let you know that my revenues numbers have changed on that a little bit. And our software allows us to return documents within 5 minutes. We have a property fraud alert service that customers are becoming more and more aware of. They appreciate that. We have Inspect, which allows us to use OCR technology to index our documents. It's not a perfect system, but it helps with accuracy and speed. And then we also have a Condor system, which is a backup system. If we should need it, if we're not able to index all of our documents, we can hire them to do that. So it's a little bit of an insurance policy. So our revenues this year, 1.7 million, and next year, 1.3 million. You know, so our funds, you know, our revenues exceed what we're spending on our budget. So this is my budget request. I am asking for an increase this year for the first time. I've always managed to get by without that, but I'm asking for one extra full-time employee, and I'll explain that on the next slide, but the other numbers haven't changed much, and just the increases in the regular salary increases. So this new position would be $53,789 for salary and benefits. Basically, the responsibilities would be recording documents, which is what we have a huge need for, customer service and clerical duties. It would alleviate the burden from the other employees, reduce the risk of errors. No matter how hard you try, when you feel rushed, you're going to make mistakes. I'd like to alleviate that, and also reduce burnout. When you're feeling rushed, you get stressed out. Also, people would like to take vacations sometimes, and when there's somebody sick in the office, it puts the load on the other people. So I would like to help our employees stay fresh and want to be in the office. I've had good luck so far, and I want them to want to stay. So in 2019, we had 25,727 documents with revenues about 1.1 million, and that's just filing fee revenue. That doesn't include any money from the tech fund that we receive also. And in 2020, we had 30,000, so over 5,000 more documents from 2019 to 2020, with 1.6 million in revenues, and I'm projecting about 1.7 million this year. So I was talking about the technology fund. We use that to purchase our microfilm, our hardware updates, our recording system. We also do pay one employee out of that technology fund. And when we have excess monies, we can transfer that to the land records fund to be used by other offices. So that helps the general budget. And we bring in about 200,000 in revenues in the tech fund each year. So I believe that is all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Becky, when you started, you had a staff of 5, right?
So yes, with myself, there were
Right.
5.
And then you had one that retired and you just didn't fill that position.
No, that in 2014, when the budget was cut, she was let go.
Okay,
And she actually found a position within the county.
okay. But then we never replaced that position.
Right.
And so what you're wanting to do is replace that position that was cut back in 2014.
Yes.
To kind of get back to where you were staffed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I know that your filings have been up, and a lot of that has to do with the market right now and where we're at. If the market does cool down, I mean, is there still going to be that same level of need, or?
Possibly not, and I've thought about that, and I might not replace those positions, use natural attrition with future retirements.
Right.
If possible, or if necessary, we might need to cut that position.
I mean, because I know the people you have in your office are just aces, and if they're watching, we think very highly of them and
Okay.
everything that they do.
Thank you. I can't
And I know
say
that you've
enough.
got great staff, and your office is just really functioning just at a top-notch level due to your staff, and so.
Yes, I can't say enough good things about them.
And so if you were to lose them, I know that would be devastating to the Register of Deeds office.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that your need to create basically a position to prepare for the future. So,
You mentioned how many documents per person you do per year. How does that compare with other counties?
I did a poll about 3 or 4 years ago, and the highest county was about 5,000. So we're double what the other counties are doing. Yeah, they can't believe in Wyandotte County that we function with 3 people. And we're larger than Wyandotte and have more activity.
with 3 very
Very
super-
competent people, yes.
I mean, it really does
Well-
speak to the staff.
Yes.
But you have one that's paid out of the tech fund. So
Right.
your department has 4 people, right?
With myself, it's 4, 3,
Yeah.
3 staff.
Right, yes. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, just 3 staff,
Mhm.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I have a question about property fraud. What all do you do in that realm?
Well, we don't actually do anything, but we have an alert system set up. So if somebody wants to sign up for it, they can do so for free through our, and it's through our software company. And they get an alert whenever something is recorded in their name. So if there is fraudulent activity, they can take care of it immediately. So it's helpful because you could have a lien filed or something done, and you may not know for a couple years down the road when you go to sell the house.
And anyone can sign up for that, or is that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And you can sign up your spouse, you can sign up with email and phone, or just email. Yeah, and they'll give you an automated call. If I'd rather you put in an email if you're going to sign up, because that's better than an automated call.
All right.
You know, Commissioners, when Becky started, we were receiving quite a bit more in revenue due to the filings, and then the legislature changed that quite a bit, and that was a $3 million hit to the commission revenues, or the county revenues.
Yeah, it used to be a percentage of the
Sale,
filing,
yeah.
of the mortgage
Mhm.
filing. And now it's a per page filing.
Right.
And so that was a change the legislature dealt and created the tech fund from that.
Yeah, the tech fund was already in place. They actually, your county clerk tech fund and treasurer tech fund was created out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of, but, yeah, yeah, we tried to stop that, but.
I don't foresee us lifting or changing that law, and so,
I think that's old news, so I haven't heard any
no.
discussion on that one at all.
Yeah. There has been some discussion on moving to a kind of a flat fee or predictable fee for the filers, but that hasn't made any movement recently.
Because I didn't know how they would react to the per page, because I know that I've heard recently from some different title companies that there's people that don't like the per page. They try to see how much they can cram on each page, or want to know ahead of time how many pages each document or filing is going to have.
Because with the new laws, they're required to have a closing statement, and the exact amount is supposed to be disclosed to the customer. And if that changes, they have to go through a lot of red tape to let the customer know. And so it's better to have a predictable fee. But some of the parties involved weren't interested in that, so it kind of died. But it would be like $70 to record a deed instead of the per page.
Commissioner Mays, questions?
Nothing from me.
Good.
I have one last question. Your request for increase, is that just to cover another position, or is it more than that?
Yes, it's just the one position with benefits, the 53,000. The rest of the personnel increase is just for the regular step increases that are built in.
Commissioner, if you look at Form E, that is for any employee personnel changes. So that shows not only the salary, the wages, but then also the benefits. So that shows you how much
Okay.
that.
All right.
And I'm assuming that your hope is that you can have somebody full-time that would come in so that they're there when or if staff does retire, so that you don't have any stoppage or slack in what you're doing. as
Yes.
opposed to hiring on one or two intermittent staff or part-time employees to help pick up the slack that we have, or the increased workload that we have right now.
Yes, I looked at that, but the training involved with an intermittent staff member would just, I think it would just be too much of an investment.
Unless you were able to find somebody that just recently retired from real estate and needs,
Yes, that would be great. I actually had somebody call me from Missouri that worked in a recorder's office there, that worked there 8 years, and asked if I had any positions open. I said, oh my gosh, you'd be a prime candidate. If I do get this position, I'll give you a call. So,
yes, Betty?
Also, you mentioned intermittent, with the
Capers.
capers. It would probably have to be a part-time position, and so then we have to pay those benefits.
Part-time benefits.
Anyway, yeah.
I am just trying to, because I know that what you're looking at is succession planning primarily, and preparing for having this person fully trained and up and going, so that if and when there is a retirement, you're not going to experience any downtime. So, I understand.
Real quick, Betty, on Form A, for employee benefits, in the department request, it's got the 85,000. The other years, they're all kind of broken down by category there.
What we normally do is, for budget purposes, I give them 1%. If you look on Form C, I give them a percentage for full-time and people. For intermittents and temps, it's a different percentage because it doesn't include capers. Rather than asking the departments to break that all down,
Okay.
then after the budget is approved, then Jennifer breaks that out for their budget in the system, in our accounting system. But for budgeting purposes, we just use a percentage because it's just a
Okay,
simpler method.
okay. Just wanted to get that clarified. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Anything else?
don't think so.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will conclude the hearing and our budget hearing, and our next one is at 1:30.
Okay.
I went to Harley Davidson, but they were on vacation, so while I was there, I stopped So we might as well let Steve Bauman come talk. In all seriousness, it's ready for the 2020 budget request for the Shawnee County Appraiser.
Good afternoon, Steve Bauman. I am the County Appraiser, and this is my 2022 budget request presentation. My budget request is going to be pretty boring, so I'm going to give you some important information. Our office is responsible for appraising over 76,000 parcels of real estate, as well as all taxable personal property annually. Our goal is to appraise those properties at fair market value, which is what a well-informed buyer is willing to pay a well-informed seller in an open and competitive market. Should be what it'd sell for. So that's our goal. And the reason for that is we need accurate values in order to distribute the tax base fair and equitably among all of the tax-paying public. We have an excellent staff of 24 people, very dedicated, including the GIS department. And that GIS department that's housed within our office, beyond our needs, they also see to the needs of all county departments. And then most all of our information is also available on our website at snco.us/AP. Go over quick accomplishment that we are, we're held to the high standards by Property Valuation Division. They go through something called a substantial compliance audit, for which we're graded on. That's 2 phases. One is procedural. That is a very thorough review of our processes. The other is statistical. I'm proud of the numbers that our staff is able to obtain. Down below there, you'll see the median ratios. In order for us to be in compliance, that number needs to be between 90 and 110. And if it's 100, that would be saying that our appraised values equal the sale price. A 92 would indicate that our numbers are less than what properties are selling for. So something you need to keep in mind, the latest study is 2020. Our value is as of January 1st of 2020, and the ratio study uses sales that occur throughout 2020. So a ratio of 92, when we started out at 98 as of January 1st, would indicate there's some market appreciation there that's being lost in our ratio study. So, and we normally shoot for between 98 and 100. Don't mind being a little bit conservatively low on our estimates. But all the same, very good numbers. So good to see those. This pie chart is a great illustration of the makeup of our budget, very heavily dependent on our personnel. I'd like to highlight these items because you won't see them in my budget request. These items are being paid for through the Land Records Fund, which is Register of Deeds Technology Fund excess. So I'd like to thank Becky Neosi for actually creating a separate budgeting process that comes before our budget so that we're able to know what items we have paid for not using tax dollars. And this is, it's worked out really well for us. I'll point out, like the Esri annual maintenance of $40,000, that's a GIS software that really benefits the entire county. And when I say county, I don't mean just departments, I mean the public as well, because it's used quite heavily on our website as well as within each department. The same with the orthophotography. That's our aerial photos that we get every other year. That sees heavy use by other departments as well. And again, we were able to remove these items from our budget several years ago. MSA 100, we're not asking for any additional personnel. So we do have the $40,000 up top there that is to account for our retirement deficit. We have been putting in a little bit every year for the last 6 years and have been able to build up enough to cover any surprise retirement, so I don't know that's necessary that it's included in this year's budget. The number down below does not include that item. It's a separate number on my presentation. I don't know if it is on Betty's, but
It's included in the form that you all see, the Form A, but
Yes.
it's not included.
I've separated it out here.
Yeah.
We have 11 employees that are, which is about half of our staff, eligible for retirement. But I'm not foreseeing anybody retire in 2022. Our contractual services, nothing exciting here, asking for a little bit less than the prior year. We had a slight reduction in membership dues and subscriptions and a slight reduction in telephone usage. Supplies, again, a slight reduction. Gasoline. We got better fuel-efficient vehicles this last year, so this is an item that I'm looking at pretty heavily. I think it might be able to come down a little bit more. Last year was kind of an anomaly and difficult to judge how things were going with the COVID and being shut out from driving a whole lot, but again, just a slight decrease. And then total, looking at the comparison, this 22 request that you see there does include the 40,000. With that 40,000, we're looking for a 1.82% increase. Other than that, our other two items are at 2%, 5% decreases. And I am available for any questions.
If the legislature was able to pass a moratorium on property tax increase to where it would only be assessed every other year, and which was one of the things that was at least somewhat discussed this last legislative session, how would that impact your office?
I think we'll see that again, and I think it could have potential for staff reduction, and it would certainly give us a better opportunity to even fine-tune our numbers even more.
But wouldn't that create bigger swings in market value? A lot can happen over 24 months.
Oh, yeah, and it could cause, especially if our market's going the way it is now, anywhere from, I mean, we could see anywhere from 12 to 20% increases in 1 year, which, is a concern, and it would certainly increase our hearing levels.
Every 4 years, you're required to do a full appraisal. Is that accurate?
No. Every year, we're required to do a full appraisal.
Okay.
We are required to be on site of every property at least once every 6 years.
Okay, every 6 years.
Yeah, and it happens more often than that anyway, generally because of we're out on site for every sale and every building permit that's taken out. So most of the time, we're out more often than that. But
Now, on-site, does that mean just flying overhead or driving down the roadway, or does that mean actually walking up, knocking on Commissioner Rippon's door, asking to come in and see the inside of his house?
No, we cannot. Well, we don't generally ask to see the inside of the house. Normally, that's a procedural issue that we don't do unless we're asked for a very specific reason to see the inside of the house, and it's usually through the appeal process. But no, all of our on-site visits are exterior only. Sales and permits, they're a little more thorough, so we're walking and measuring, remeasuring everything. Our normal view and inspect process, we don't remeasure unless we see something that seems out of line.
Well, so just, again, just for the sake of just today's discussion, with the 707 Quincy building that was recently purchased by the county for administrative offices, that building had had a complete renovation of its interior prior to its purchase. If you don't go inside the building, how would you ever know what the interior looks like?
That's a good question. When I said we don't go inside, I was thinking residential properties.
Okay.
With commercial properties, we will go inside and inspect the renovation. So generally, for commercial properties, an on-site inspection does include the interior.
And again, potentially, if you were looking at moratoriums, there might be years that go by before you would see what changes have been made.
You know, I foresee, I'm not necessarily in favor of the 2-year valuation cycle. I'm not necessarily against it. I think it would give us an opportunity as appraisers to do maybe even a better job than what we're doing now, because we're not doing it as often. The downside of that would be the additional appeals that we're going to see because of value spikes. That doesn't change the fact that we still have all of our other requirements that we have to do on an annual basis, at least as far as I know. And I imagine we're going to see the legislation again, but I think it's going to, I don't think it's really going to have that much of an effect on our normal processes, where we still have to go out and look at sales and building permits and things like that on an annual basis.
Last question I had was, with your mapping GIS software, where you were able to do a better detection of what has changed from one year to another year, how much has that increased the workload on your office?
We don't have that piece of the technology built into our GIS software yet. In conversations with Lee Allen, I think that's a possibility, and we're going to work towards that. Initially, when we did the push pin thing several years ago, it was a big drag on our staff. It was a lot of work, and we spread it out over a couple of years because we had to. It wasn't possible for us to take care of it all at once. But it was a great opportunity for us to correct some of the things that we were missing. Some of the procedures we've enhanced to where I have more confidence that we're not missing some things that may have been added without our knowledge. So I think we may be able to get to some of that change detection within our current system. It's just going to take a little bit of maneuvering and building from Lee Allen and the GIS team.
Questions?
Yeah. When it detects a change in the footprint of your property, what would increase the property? Say they put up a gazebo, would that increase it, or is that something you're not really looking for, or are you just looking for additions to the house? Or
Well, you know, when
garage?
we did the push pin study, we looked at the big ticket items first. You know, the garages, the additions, the big porches and things like that, the decks and patios, those all came secondary. Because while they do add to the value of your home, it's not a great deal of value added with those small things. And many times you can kind of look at what's its cost, you know, to judge how big of an increase is it going to be. You know, a 70 by 100 barn is going to add a lot more than your 10 by 10 gazebo that you have in your backyard. So, I mean, there is that difference. And it really boils down to what's someone going to be willing to pay for the item. You know, if you put it up for sale, the house and with the gazebo versus a house without the gazebo. House with an additional detached garage versus a house without one. That answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you.
Mr. Mays, anything?
Nope.
All right.
I do have a question. Is there a statutory limit on how much you can increase a value each year?
No, there is not.
Was there talk of that,
There was a lot of talk about
but
that.
it did not pass?
No. And primarily because it would be unconstitutional. You know, if someone were to add, you know, a big addition to their house, it's going to increase their value way more than the normal market increase. So it wouldn't be constitutional for them to impose a value cap at this point.
Mr. Mays?
Unrelated to your budget, but the new rule about routine maintenance and how you can't take improvements like that into consideration with valuations, that caused any trouble for you guys?
No, and I don't necessarily see that it will. We don't generally increase a value based solely on routine maintenance. You know, if you consider what routine maintenance is, you know, their value is going to go up because the market's increasing, and that routine maintenance helps with the market increase. You know, if you let your house fall in disrepair, you're not going to see a market increase like someone who keeps it up. So there is that little caveat to the question. But you know, the definition of routine maintenance, we don't increase values anyway because of normal maintenance on the property.
Mr. Rippon?
Just a question on the appraisal. I hear these stories of, you know, a house being appraised, we'll just say $200,000. And people are offering $240 and paying cash kind of thing because the bank won't approve a loan for that amount on the house. How does that affect the way how do you alter your appraisals in the future? Do you base it on what the guy paid for it? Is that
Yes, I
that's
mean,
all you have to go on? I guess you don't have well, I guess you could.
yeah, I mean, it's market driven. So if one person does that, it's an anomaly, it's a blip. If everyone's doing that, that's the market.
Yeah.
That these homes are, you know, the asking price and what it sells for, that's just an indication of how the market is. It's not necessarily an indication of value. The sale price is really the main thing that we're looking at. And we don't use just one sale price, and one sale price of that specific home doesn't necessarily determine what our appraised value is going to be. It's what the comparables sales are saying it's worth. So that's a good question though, because it is happening more and more now.
I don't know how you keep up with all of it. It's crazy right now.
Got a great staff, and we do a lot of work to track that, so.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our next budget hearing will be at 2 o'clock with the planning department, I believe, right?
That's what I have.
Okay.
I intended to pass these out, and I forgot. Did you want one?
No, I'm good.
sure Scott is gonna come up
No.
with modern glass with chrome steel and,
They have a style, that's for sure.
Make sure that the whole front is clear. That's always nice too.
No.
I'm always like,
Why would
I'm
you
not
do
really a
that?
fan of the postmodern architectural style.
Mid-century modern.
I'm like, wood, I like
There
wood,
is no coat rack there now.
heavy furniture.
I just don't like things that are trendy.
Yeah.
That are gonna go out
End
of,
in
that's,
the
look
door
at
jam.
the city council chambers, that was real trendy at the time, and now it's very
Now
dated
it
looking.
looks, yeah, the city council, yeah.
All right,
501.
it's 2:00, and we will have a budget presentation for the 2022 year for the planning department. Randy, you're up.
Pass this out, there's some data I want to show you. It's very interesting. Okay, I'm going to start off by giving you the 20,000-foot look at our department. A review of the last year, how that translates into what we're coming up into next year. During the last, well, since March of 2020, we've had a boom in all types of permits, whether it's pools, new starts, single-family, commercial, across the board. Our numbers have been very high. We expect this to continue, especially now that the lumber prices have receded back into a normal range. The permitting did drop off in May. And if you look at that handout that I gave you on page 2, when you look at those numbers, you have to realize that last year we did big-time business in March, April, May, and June. So when you compare this year's data to that, you're looking at a boom on top of a boom. So some of those numbers on there, especially the March, April, and June numbers are almost 5,000, 22,000, almost 11,000 higher than last year's boom numbers. What's interesting, you look at that 1 month, May, that is exactly when lumber prices peaked. And you see the corresponding drop. And then they came back down in June, and now you see the corresponding bounce back. So these numbers actually quantify what's happening in the market. So our belief is that the trend is going to continue, because we've seen it play out here just the last 2 months. People are more home-centric. They're looking to do things with their house, make their house more livable, providing a new room for a grandmother to come in and live with them, or to visit when they need care, or things of that nature. So that trend we expect is going to continue in the coming year, and maybe longer. We obviously had a drop in the push pin because the program ended, but we have had a lot of requests come out of their department where there's been violations and things that we've handled. So overall, the amount of work that flows out of the appraiser's office has dropped by at least 50%, maybe a little bit more. So that's no longer a concern going forward. What has increased is the amount of work that we're required to perform as part of the CRS program. That's the flood management program that gives us the additional rates where we can offer our citizens in the unincorporated areas additional discounts on their flood insurance. What they want now is they want even more accounting of everything we do, everything anybody says about a floodplain. So if you were to come in and say, hey, I own some property at this address, I'm thinking about doing a building here, we tell you it's in the floodplain, they want every conversation documented. So if we tell them, no, you can't do it, or yes, you can do it, but you need a flood development permit, they want those tracks to show that a person was told, so if they file a claim in the future, they want to say, okay, you were told, you were advised, and then they can take whatever action they feel like they need to take. So, I mean, it's a good program. I think we saved taxpayers probably 8 to 10% on their flood insurance rates. So we definitely need to be in that program. But FEMA is tightening the requirements. We have more documentation, more record keeping we have to do as part of that, and that's okay. But it does take more of our time. And also, just as an FYI, they are looking at recurring floodplain losses. We have 2 or 3 properties in town where we've had recurring claims. They may at some point want the county to take remediation steps to either buy out a property or do what's necessary, make some kind of physical improvement to the ground to prevent that property from being flooded. Usually, most cities, if the problem happens every year, like last year, we had the big flood in June or July on the southeast side of town, and this property was affected during that. Usually, the only solution is to buy them out. If we get that kind of claim happening on a 10-year storm, then you know we have a 100-year storm or anything approaching it. They're gonna flood every time. So they're looking at that. So getting closer down to the earth from the sky, Kurt, in his wise way, challenged me. He said, "Okay, you see, I keep telling him we have a workload expansion and so on." And he says, "Okay, what has changed between 2018 to the current day?" I mentioned the CRS. Every year they require an additional layer of record keeping and documentation. That's obvious. Probably the big thing though that's affected our workload is the building code. You passed an ordinance or resolution in 2018, and I'm glad you did. The ordinance is definitely working. So I'm gonna thank you first for the ordinance and say it has caused some big problems. We had a person last year wanted to build on top of a basement that it had a fire, and my intuition was we better have a structural engineer verify that the basement is safe to build on top of, and we were able to see what they were proposing. We got that information to somebody who was certified in the industry, and they said no, it was not. So that kept that owner from building a building on top of an unsafe foundation that would have caused the house to be dilapidated probably at some point down the road. And we also had another guy who had a 1950s vintage Forbes Field type of old building that they wanted to put a second story on top of. And my intuition was that the first floor wasn't stable enough to accommodate that weight load, and that was borne out to be true by another inspector. So the program's working. Those 2 examples, and this is just for future thought, those 2 examples are something that some cities and counties, they'll have an on-call, they'll have a fund set aside of some amount of money where they have, if they feel like they need a technical person to bear out the structural integrity of a project, a city or county can give them the information, and they can look at it and say, this is unsafe, don't issue a permit, or yes, it is safe, or have them amend their plans accordingly to make it safe. That's something down the road we may want to consider. Just those 2 examples just in the last year, kind of, we did that on a favor from a person at Topeka who's willing to help us out. So, with the new plans we're getting, it requires more record management, more documentation of phone calls, more emails, phone calls, drop-ins. I put some numbers down here, some information. About 60% of all the people who come in require at least 4 to 5 visits with us. And I count a visit as they send an email to us, or we send an email to them of information, or a telephone conversation, or in person. So the average person is needing about 5 visits. So when you look at one permit, on average, 60% of those went through a process where and this is not just Ma and Paul citizen, this is contractors as well. You'd think there'd be some kind of difference in professional providers versus regular individuals, but there's not. Probably 20% of everything that comes in is clean, where we only have 1 or 2 conversations, and it gets done fairly simply. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, my next point, probably of the whole universe of people who come in and talk to us, they actually don't do anything. We'll spend the 4 or 5 phone calls, we'll give them information, and have everything ready for them to proceed, and they won't for maybe 6 months, a year, or never. So there's never a permit issued. This is a list. I mean, this is the handouts of all the properties we handled in 2020 for a full year, where we did the research and did everything in preparation for a permit that never happened. And this is 2021. The point is, for every permit you see on the report that Kurt sends you every month, there's probably at least one or more that fall in that category that never came to fruition. I only mention all that just to clarify the amount of work we're doing. People take that information. I mean, all those there. We do a lot of research. We research setbacks, easements, whether property needs to be platted or not, so it's ready for them to build, or somebody to build or do something with the property. So each one of those, we do as much work as we do for any other permit. These trends became apparent in 2018 when we started having the construction plans that we were getting more. There was more work for us to do in managing the records, and we also had, it was just a lack of people who wanted somebody to hold their hand through the process. It's kind of discouraging that a professional architect and contractor would require the same kind of attention, but that's basically what we're seeing right now, and it's not going to be improving anytime soon. It seems like not a whole lot of professionalism that you would expect from those people. And then I have an example here if you want to see it. I call it a deep dive research. Somebody is wanting to buy a property or sell a property, and they want to know the complete forensic history of that property, from when COs were issued, when permits were issued, for every piece of building that ever happened on that property. So we're going into the permitting records, the platting records. I call it a deep dive because it takes about 5 hours at least to do one of those things, and then they typically want copies of all the permits and any other information that's ever happened on that property for documentation purposes. I did that for a living, and I did it myself, and now people will send us the request, say, here, fill this out, guys. And I think if we're going to keep doing that, and we don't mind doing it, but probably to charge for that privilege. Because it does, and the thing that's scary about those is that if we do something, people take that to the bank and say, okay, this is the history of the land. So if I do something, I know it's been permitted, or I can do this based on that information. And if they come in for an actual permit, and then they go, surprise, you can't do that, then they can hold this over the head of the county. So if you do one of those things, you have to do it with the same level of accuracy that a title company would do it, because people will make decisions and hold it over our heads based on that information we give them. So we're seeing probably one or two of those a month. This is another thing that we do. We don't mind giving out zoning information, or, well, they call it what's the setback. We'll tell them all that information, but when they want that kind of dive, it takes a lot of time. And the point that I want to make after saying all that is that whether Anna Ortega stays for 1 more year or 5 more years or forever, bless her heart, she might. But if she does, those factors aren't going to change. When she does leave, they'll only become more, because of her expertise and knowledge where all this stuff is in the records, they'll just become more acute. But those are trends that I don't see ever changing. That's what our staff that came before me have experienced, and what I've seen the last 2 years. So that's kind of the lay of the land of where we're at. I discussed all of this with Betty and with Kurt and Angela about how, what is the most feasible way we can go forward to kind of attack the issue in the most fiscal responsible way in a tight budget year that we can. Before I came on the scene, everybody in our department, we all cross-train. So I know what the receptionist does, she knows what Anna does, everybody knows what everybody does. So right now, we have a receptionist who is really doing more customer service and more major things than she is receptioning type of issues. This is to lay it out. My goal is to move her into a customer service person where she can spend more time, and so that instead of we having 5 or 6 trips back and forth with customers, we can maybe nail that down to 1 or 2. So by having only 1 or 2, that frees her up to help other customers, and there's less things going on in the office. She can handle. That person would be under the direction of the zoning administrator. So that person would be able to issue permits, a certain type of permit, like swimming pools, outbuildings, things of that nature, to be determined if we ever make that transition. So this person would basically manage the office and manage customer relations. By taking her off of the receptionist, we would hire a Teamster level receptionist that would take care of the phone calls and the walk-ins, and then if the walk-ins needed more attention, then she would be able to farm them off to this new position. I kind of don't like calling it a new position. It's a realignment of an existing position's responsibilities. So that current position would transfer from administrative assistant to office manager, and this new person would be the receptionist and person who could work under the office manager to help us with the filing and getting our records up to date. That's the record management becomes a bigger deal every year because we have more people like FEMA who want to be able to walk in and pick a permit out of a hat. Pick the address out of a hat and say, show me the permits on that property. And if we don't have our permitting, our records in order, it takes additional time to find that information. And if someone walks in off the street and they want that information, it takes time to service that person. So record management is becoming more of a big deal by the year, and we're behind the curve. And that's something that became more pronounced in the last 4 years after 2018, because we've had more records that need to be filed and maintained. We are in the process of going to an online permitting system where people can apply and do more things online, which should, I think, help the process. There's going to be a big learning curve on that, but implementing that process is taking some time because of the other responsibilities that we're managing on a day-to-day basis. We're forced to take care of the customer who walks in today and put the future customer's needs on the back burner until we have time to address it. So I think by having this person, that will free up more time in the office to help us get us to the next level where we're doing more business over, online, as opposed to have everybody come in and do a walk-in submittal. So that's kind of where we're at and where we'd like to be, and the reasons and rationale for it. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
I have a question on FEMA. You say if you have reoccurring flooding in a particular house, that they may ask us to remove that house, or?
They haven't yet.
They haven't yet, but they would be talking about the county paying for that, or?
That's usually the way it works. They go, okay, we'll give you a choice, we'll give you an offer you can't refuse. You pick option A or B. Either you build physical improvements that takes away the flooding situation, like you build a levee, or you build some kind of drainage improvements that makes the water go a different way, where it's just not all going onto that property, or you get rid of the property. Get rid of the improvements on there, so that if it floods again, you're not paying a claim over and over again.
The city of Topeka recently did that with several parcels that had repeated incidences of flooding.
They aren't threatening us with anything yet, but they want us to document more. I know there's 3 properties. We haven't been able to identify the 2 other ones that we don't know about, because FEMA because of the pandemic, FEMA hasn't been able to hire somebody to manage those records. So we're kind of stuck in limbo until FEMA hires some people. But we know, based on what we've heard from them, is that there are 3 properties. I don't know to what degree the problems are, but I know the one, there's one in the area around Lake Shawnee over there where, I know last year it flooded again when we had that big 7-inch rain in 30 minutes in June or July. And one of our problems is that we don't always get notice in our office that there was a property who filed a claim. So we have to depend on FEMA to let us know, hey, you guys had a claim on such and such property. What are you going to do about it? So we need to work with them on and trying to identify those properties, and then work with Kurt and his staff to figure out what can be done, if anything, to improve the situation.
Thank you.
Other questions?
The charging folks for your deep dive research, how would you go about doing that?
You just have a flat fee of,
Per hour, or?
I would just say, that it generally takes us 5 hours to do it. I don't really want to bill somebody for 5 hours of work. I mean, maybe have a flat fee of you know, $100 or $200. I think $150 or $200 is more appropriate, because if we're going to spend that much time to make sure it's correct, then there should be a fee that's commensurate with the effort that we're doing. That's one way. I'm hesitant about getting those and sending them to the clerk to go through the Freedom of Information process, because that takes a little longer. You know they're going to do it and comply, but with the FOIA. But I would say, you know, we charge a flat fee plus some number per page of copies, or that we provide them, or we send them a PDF. Do it all electronically if possible, without copies. Each one of those things is a little bit different. Some are extensive. Some are not that difficult.
And how do you identify those up front? Or, I mean, is this kind of, does this one particular case just start creeping in a little bit more each time they call, or?
No,
I mean,
well, I've been on staff here in Texas and other states, and this has become more and more of a trend everywhere you go.
yeah.
Instead of their logic is, why should I hire a title specialist to charge me whatever they charge to get all this information, when I can just have the staff do the work, charge it to the taxpayers, and get the same stuff, or at least a pretty good chunk of what they need for the title search. So they're pawning their work onto the public. This is what it amounts to. They're saving some money for their client, and you know, they'll look at the information and they'll come back if they need more documentation or something. But usually they'll let that stand as a title search. I'm not saying it's right, but it's what's happening. And
I guess what I'm asking though is, like, does somebody call or email and say, I need this laundry list of documents, or do they contact you once, and then once you provide that, they say, okay, now I need this, and now I need this? Or, I mean, would you be able, if you were going to charge a flat fee, would you be able to assess that up front
Yeah.
to everyone, or, you know, would you even know up front if they're going to need that deep dive research?
Well, I have an example of one if you want to look at it. Usually, it's come in just like this. We got an email that says, "Here, guys, do this," and when you do this, put all this stuff on your letterhead. So I mean, they feel like they can just dictate how your staff works. You know, do it like this, put it on a letterhead. It's just let's just look at it for a second. It's just kind of in your face. There's not any phone call or anything, and they just say, here, we want this done, guys, do it. And you know, there's certain times where that comes in, when that comes in, and it's kind of difficult to fit it into your life in the office. But that's not a major thing, it's just something that we're seeing more of. I just want, well, what my point in that is saying, this is happening, when we go through the zoning ordinance process of amending that, we're taking some of the fees that, what we want to do is take the fees that are listed in the zoning ordinance and come up with a planning department fee schedule. So instead of having all those fees in the context of your zoning ordinance, put them in a separate resolution, and then when you do that, that can be part of it.
Well, I think that the most interesting line in here is that it's my understanding there will not be any fees associated with this request. Please be advised, the total fees are not to exceed $0 without my approval.
Yeah. It's kind of
So-
it's kind of insulting.
Yeah, it's like, I expect you to do this, I'm not gonna pay for it. Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
especially when you know that if they don't get their way, when they actually want to do something, they're gonna wave that letter in your face to go, but you said right here, county, XYZ, so what is it? So, I mean, you have to do that thing like it's gonna come back and bite you somewhere at some
Betty?
point in the future.
Do you have any kind, when you provide them this information, is there any kind of disclaimer that you put on there that this is not to be used for legal, something that would protect the county?
We haven't yet. I think that's a good
I
point.
think it would be good to talk to the county counselor's office and have some kind of disclaimer on the information you're providing.
So that's kind of where we're at. I don't mind doing what we're doing. It's that I think we're getting to a point where I feel like we need to focus more, have one person devoted to customer service. That's the only reason why we're making the proposal for the additional receptionist position, so that one other person can devote themselves entirely to the customer and their needs. Whether that be by the internet, or by walk-ins, or phone, or email, whatever, that person will be devoted to the customer.
Other questions?
No.
All right.
Thank you for your
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
About 3-minute break before next for solid waste.
Simple one, in writing, these are doing
That letter was downright rude, I thought. It's like-
Randy,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have a records management system out there?
Yeah, we use it, but it takes time. It takes
Jill. Suck up.
Approved.
I'm an Ichabod, I'm immune to this. And you
All right.
are too.
I'll go buy one of those too.
Do.
Have a family connection here. All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. Good afternoon, ladies. We're here today for the Shawnee County Solid Waste 2022 budget proposal. And just start out, since I know some people are streaming or watching this, it'll go viral by the end of the day. But just kind of recapping the mission statement, we basically exist to provide the residents of Shawnee County a cost-effective, efficient collection of solid waste material, both trash and recycling. And we strive to protect the health and well-being of the public by providing this service to the county. Within the department, there are 7 divisions, so my budget encompasses all 7 divisions. And this is the current breakdown of the department, my admin, my shop, my residential, which is basically those who collect the trash, my commercial guys, my roll-off, the recycle, and then my household hazardous waste. They also fall underneath the solid waste division. The fleet in itself, we have a total of 61 pieces of rolling stock, and you can kind of see the breakdown there, whether it be in rear load, side load, front load, roll-off container, or shop pickup trucks. And then over there on the right is our vehicles that we are awaiting delivery from that were purchased earlier this year. And typically they run anywhere from, well, we've seen them as far as, I think, 16 months last year with COVID, but we are anticipating delivery of some of these by the end of the year. Because we have a pretty aggressive replacement within the fleet, we don't have those high variable maintenance costs that other people, other companies see within the county. Our trucks look good, they present a nice appearance, and then we get a great trade-in price when we do trade those in at the end of our 5 years. Our customers within the county, this kind of shows you the customer growth going back to 2014. So you kind of see an incremental growth year to year to year to year, and those 2020 numbers, that was as of December of last year. And as I include in my solid waste notes every month, you kind of see the ebbs and flows of those customers. This is just purely residential. This is not counting my commercial customers because those fluctuate even more. And with the utilization of routeware that we started back in May, for the first time ever, we've actually have a total count of our recycling customers now. Just because the way it was being billed, we lost visibility of our recycle customers because it's an optional thing. But now that we actually have visibility, we have approximately 47,200 recycle containers out there. So we offer the service to our non-customers, and some people have multiple. So kind of interesting to see the actual number of recycled containers that we have throughout the county now. Revenue. Going back to 2014 again, you kind of see the revenue growth, and this is all based off of customers and user fees. We have not had any rate increases since 2012, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. So that revenue growth is just straight by the number of customers throughout the county. You might ask, that 13 million, what is the breakdown of that revenue? A large chunk of it is the residential, of course. My commercial accounts come in next, followed by roll-off, and then you see the landfill surcharge there, which is a little over $600,000. The department receives $2.50 per ton from anything that gets delivered out to the landfill. And that helps offset the cost of the recycling and our household hazardous waste facility and their operation. talk about, and I get a little bit of revenue from our recycling. And what this graph indicates, you see that solid line there, that is the zero line. And since May of 2018, we have been in the negative for our recycling rebate. In other words, I have been paying Waste Management to recycle, or Kurt as well, has been paying our Waste Management to recycle our commodities, just because of the absolute horrible commodities price with the China ban and everything else that's been going on. And then you've seen it kind of start to climb in 2020, and then it really took off in this year, especially in April, and we actually went positive. And that was all driven by a new law out in California with post-consumer bottles now. So our HDPE, or number 2, those prices are absolutely through the roof. So recycle milk jugs, we're getting money. So last month I received a check for the first time since 2018 for $900. So actually we're in the positive, at least. All right, 5-year plan. Like I mentioned earlier, it was a setup before me. We have a pretty good rotation through our capital, or 5-year capital plan. This year, we do not trade in any vehicles that are not 5 years old because we've paid for that 5-year warranty and we're going to get our money's worth out of it. So this year, my budget is a little bit underneath what I typically run around 1.3. And we might try to look at maybe going to a 6-year trade-in on some of our equipment. But right now, we're just sticking to the 5-year plan. And I know that 2025, that's really big out there at 1.7. But there's a possibility that we might be able to extend those front loaders another year or two, just because they will have very few miles on them by the time we get out there. So we're looking at that. So don't let that 2025 scare you.
Hey, Bill?
If I'm still here at that
There's
time.
2 2025s.
That should be 2026. I apologize for that.
Okay.
All right. So what does all this mean? This means, what is my budget looking like for this year? All right. So my 2021 budget was 13.6. This year's budget is coming in at 14.3, which is a increase of just a little under $700K, which is roughly about a 5% increase. And what is driving this? All right, I kind of can see an incremental as we're going. And here are the major drivers. We have the $400,000 is Shawnee County indirect costs, which somehow I omitted from last year's budget, so it's there. It's not a new thing. I just didn't put that in there. My benefits increased. The union contract, there's a pretty significant increase for my the union contract. Route wear fees, Waste Management with their annual 2% increase, a little bit of diesel fuel increase, and then the Old County landfill, which I am financially responsible for. We put some money in there, put some additional money in there just to offset anything that could be occurring out there, which Kurt has talked about in previous meetings that we're doing. Major decreases, we've went ahead and decreased $170,000 out of our shop supplies and services. I think we can do a better job managing our shop now. Got a good fleet supervisor in there, and we think we can get the job done there. Any questions up to this point?
Questions?
All right.
No.
All right, going back to our user fees, we have not raised our residential user fees since 2012. That's when they kicked off the curbside recycling. So basically, any resident inside the city of Topeka, he or she pays $19.26 per month for trash service. And then anything outside of Topeka pays $20.50. And we have held that price for 9 years now. We have had steady increases in our expenses. My disposal costs have increased 2% every year, but we have been able to maintain those rates. And my commercial rates, and I discussed this with Betty last week or so, my commercial rates, we are basically giving this service away based off of our competition and my costs. These prices were implemented back in 2014. So basically, as you see the container size, and then you see how many occurrences per week that it costs. This chart does not make sense to me. There's no real correlation between them, both for my small dumpsters and my big roll-off dumpsters. And I would like to start the conversation today about working with Betty and Jennifer and proposing a new rate fee that we can talk about later in a commission meeting. But this budget here will actually dip me into the red for the fund with this proposal. So it's in our opinion that we need to look at actually raising our fees to get back into a positive number. All right.
This would be fees with commercial as well as
Yeah,
residential?
commercial and as residential, yes, sir. Yes,
Make a
ma'am.
comment. As you can see, if they have to go twice a week for a container, it costs just as much that second trip as it does the first. Well, they get a significant discount on the second, the third, the fourth, you know. And there's really no correlation to the cost and what is being charged over that,
Yeah.
you know, compared to that first one.
And I'll just use Waste Management, for example, since I have history with them. If they charge $20 for one a week, it would be $40 for two, $60 for three. I mean, how many stops, it doesn't matter. Every time they touch that can, you're gonna get hit with that fee. So it just makes sense to basically redo this fee schedule. And yes, I know I'll probably lose some customers, but right now, as Jennifer says, there is such thing as bad money out there, and right now we are chasing some bad money with some of our customers.
So Bill,
Yes.
let me just clarify this. So if I rented a 2 cubic yard, you would come and get it 5 days a week for $170.
Yes, sir.
But I could rent a 10 cubic yard for 215. So it's gonna be more to do that, and then with the 2 cubic yard, I wouldn't have to pay per ton either?
Correct. Yeah, you can load that 2-yarder up, and I'm gonna pick it up 5 days a week for $170 a month.
That's just bad math right there. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
And what is occurring is, and you see my monthly numbers in those solid waste notes, I have those commercial accounts, like 1,600 people on my commercial accounts. Well, if you have a dumpster, you're basically a commercial account. It's not that I have 1,600 businesses. You can rent a dumpster and you become a commercial account. Well, I have all these dumpsters all over the county, and people have figured out that this is a very economical way to get a lot of trash service at a significant cost, or a significant break.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of options there, too.
it is, yeah. It's a busy chart. So. And with that, I will take your questions.
Questions for Bill? All right. Anything else, Bill?
No, sir. That's kind of like Henry VIII with his wives when he told you, "I shall not keep you long."
Well, Bill, you know your business is picking up.
I got that.
Don't quit your day job.
I won't.
All right, it's 3 o'clock. Ready for our next. Felicia, I think you're up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I live?
You're
Can
ready.
you guys hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Felicia McKee with Keep America Beautiful, Topeka, Shawnee County. The mission of Keep America Beautiful is to create programs and events to promote and encourage volunteerism in our core focus areas of litter reduction, recycling, and beautification. We also provide educational programs to youth and also to civic groups. The first thing that I have included in your packets is a copy of the 2022 budget request where we are requesting level funding. Also, our end-of-year income and expense statement for 2020. As you can see in looking at the end-of-year income and expense statement, we operate on a minimal budget. We received a small cigarette litter grant, of which nearly all of that has to be applied to programming. We also had some sponsor donations for the Get Down and Get Dirty t-shirts. After my salary, we run the entire organization on about $12,000 a year. You may also remember in part of our income section there, we are the 501c3 umbrella organization for Bring Back the Boulevard. And this is a group that is dedicated to improving South Topeka Boulevard. We hold those funds, but they don't belong to us. Our biggest expense is my salary. I operate as an independent contractor without any benefits in the form of insurance or retirement, and I also pay the employer's portion of Social Security at an additional 7% cost to me. I found from working with other community improvement groups that without a paid staff person, the events and contributions are minimal. It's critical that KAB have a paid staff person. Also included in our major expenses is the insurance that we require to protect our directors and officers, and also a $1 million general liability policy to protect our volunteers. We have company van expenses and also the national convention expenses, and it's required that we go to the national convention to be in good standing. It keeps us current on what's coming up. It also makes it possible for us to receive grants and in-kind goods. We must be in good standing. Okay, the next report in your packet is our annual fiscal report, which runs July 1st through June 30th of the following year. It's kind of our official annual report that goes into National Keep America Beautiful. This year was completely abnormal with, the results were well below our normal average with activities. The COVID-19 of the past year, and unfortunately this spring, many of the events had to be canceled due to rain. We've had a terrible raining spring this year. For the 2021 fiscal year, with fiscal contributions by the county of $55,000, our value of in-kind services and benefits return was under $4 million. For every public dollar invested in KAB, this community received back $71 in benefits. In 2019, our local affiliate set a record, returning more than $15 million, and I only bring that up so that it doesn't feel so bad that we had such a dismal year. We expect that our activities will return to normal next year. The Community Appearance Index is a measurement tool designed by National Keep America Beautiful to measure the progress of each affiliate in the community, and this is also a part of our requirements for being in good standing. The scores rate litter on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 representing no litter. We just completed the 2021 index, and we showed a decrease of litter to 1.07. Last year, our numbers were up due to volunteers being unable to perform the cleanups and because of COVID, and we were at 1.42 last year. We have addressed some of the troubled areas. One of the nice things about the Community Appearance Index, it tells us exactly where the litter is. And so we've addressed some of those areas, and we will continue to work on those areas in the future. National Keep America Beautiful has just completed a nationwide litter study in August and September last year. Here are some of the findings that I thought were pretty interesting. The study estimates that nearly 50 billion pieces of litter along U.S. highways and roadways, or waterways, at the time of the study. For many, that is an unfathomable number. However, when you account the U.S. population, take that into consideration, that comes to about 152 pieces of litter for every U.S. resident. So if everybody got out and picked up litter in one day, we'd have no litter. Significant progress has been made reducing litter on the U.S. roadways in the past decade. The last litter index done by National was in 2009, and we are down 54% in the United States, so that's a good sign. No single change in litter is more impactful than the estimate that cigarette butt litter along the roads has decreased from 18.6 billion in 2009 to 5.7 billion last fall. At the time of the study, which was in August and September, it's estimated that approximately 207 million pieces of PPE, gloves, and masks can be found across America's roadways and along our waterways. These numbers are of great concern, but we believe they will diminish now that COVID is nearly behind us. And I know when I would pull up to a stop sign or a stoplight, you'd look out and you'd see this pile of face masks, and I don't see that any longer. So I think we're gaining on that as well. Some of our annual highlights include we continue to distribute our recycling directory, which is for the citizens of Shawnee County free of charge. We will continue our Earth Day celebration, which includes free landfill and free yard waste disposal. Get Down and Get Dirty. Our huge community-wide litter cleanup was canceled this year due to COVID. It was kind of a borderline time in late April, but we do feed usually 500 or 600 people for that, and I was very concerned about trying to feed people safely since we couldn't purchase, plexiglass and the whole thing that you have to do when you serve food. So we did cancel that event. I know that it'll be resumed next year. We also, in the past year, formed a new group called Friends of Rhinish with volunteers. We contributed an equivalent of 7.5 weeks of full-time employee hours last year in the Rose Garden. And it was getting kind of out of control, so we're really proud that we got that accomplished last year. Finally, in your packets is a strategic plan for 2022. Continued initiatives will include working more in the outlying areas, Auburn, Berryton, Rossville, Silver Lake, Tecumseh, and Wakarusa. We're also addressing some illegal dump sites and boat ramps, and we've already gotten a few of those adopted. We'll be addressing more water cleanups with our group called Waterfront Warriors, and we're assisting Shawnee County Solid Waste with education to get our recycling loads cleaner by recycling right. This KAB affiliate and our volunteers have been recognized nationally. During my tenure as executive director, we have been the recipient of more than 60 national awards, including 3 first place in the nation and 2 second place in the nation awards. For family reasons, I will be retiring in January, and we hope that we will find a new director with high energy, passion, and a commitment to the mission of KAB. I've truly enjoyed representing KAB for these past 16 years, and I thank you all for your support. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Felicia, I don't know what Keep America Beautiful will be without you.
Well, thank you.
You are the heart and soul of Keep America Beautiful, and have been for so many years. And so,
Thank you.
Very sorry to hear that you're going to be leaving us.
Well, I'll still be around, and I'll be volunteering from time to time as time permits.
When the city cut the Keep America Beautiful, they did a realignment of how they kind of looked at some of their social services and social service grants.
Yes.
Have there been any discussions about bringing Keep America Beautiful back into the city budget?
This is a hard discussion for me. Karen Hiller took over that committee, the budget hearing committee again, and encouraged me to apply. And I said, personally, I don't think I could go through that again. I have a lot of bad feelings and baggage, and I'm hoping that the new person can leave that behind and pursue that as well, and hopefully get some of the city funding back, because we do still work quite a bit in the city limits, and it is part of the county, so we haven't excluded them, but we hope that they'll contribute their part.
A lot of the get down and get dirty is in the city limits.
Yes, yes. And we have a lot of outlying groups that participate in that. But a good portion of it is in the city limits. And I'm hoping that the new person will have a lot of determination and decide to leave that baggage behind that I have accumulated and get that funding back.
How much was the city?
It wasn't very much. It was 15,000 was the high point, and I think it was down to 13-something when they left us.
And wasn't there a tremendous amount of paperwork involved with that?
It almost became a full-time job to do the paperwork for the city. It was very cumbersome, and I know the application was 11 pages long, and it was totally designed for social services, which we were not. We're a community service organization, so it was very difficult to try to adapt what they were asking to what we actually do. And the county's much easier to work with.
Commissioner Mays, anything?
I had a question on the budget. There's a line for, from the money market account for $4,980.
Right.
Explain that, please.
Through the years and very careful budgeting practices, I've accumulated a savings account for Keep America Beautiful. And we didn't want to pressure the solid waste department for further funding. So we have a line item that we can go into our savings account and dip into that if we need to. Fortunately, we have not had to do that at this point. We've had some grant money, some surprises come in from time to time, and we haven't had to go into our savings account to help us out. And but it's there in the budget in case we do need it.
Have you ever looked at exploring other options besides a money market account? I know that those don't typically pay that well of interest if it's kind of a nest egg.
We had a banker on my executive board several years ago, and that was the direction that he steered us, and I don't know enough about investments for me to change what he put in place.
Okay.
And it's safe, and it's there, and it's never going to disappear.
Okay.
So I always kind of get nervous about things that can go down below what you invested in the first place.
Thanks for all your
Thank you.
years of service.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. It's been a labor of love.
One of the best KAB affiliates in the nation for years, so that's amazing.
Well, they do recognize Topeka, Kansas at national conventions, so
Very good.
thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the retirement.
Thank you. I'm leaving sadly, but looking forward to it as well.
Okay. All right. It is 3:30, and we are here for the weed department.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Landry, Shawnee County Weed Director.
So what's popping up?
Everything. Everything
I
right
can
now.
attest to that.
Busy time of the year. Every noxious weed that we have is peaking right now. We're in between that stage there, so. I'm gonna go over my budget presentation with you here a little bit this morning. It's gonna be short with not a lot to talk about. This slide here is just basically our primary functions of what we do. Sell herbicides at a cost shared price to the landowners, treat noxious weeds on all county road right of way, and contract with other local governmental entities to treat noxious weeds. Down there in the blue, you'll see it says Grove Township and Monmouth Township's new for 2021. They're not really new. When we moved over to Public Works, it was one of those that kind of slipped through the cracks, so we were able to identify that it actually wasn't being done, and so now they're under contract, and we started the work for them. So the move helped. I mean, it picked up a lot of those little pieces that easily get missed, and so this was one of those pieces. So kind of a blessing in a way. On my budget overview here, just the notables is there's a slight increase in personnel services. And then just something here I'd mention that in 2022, we're anticipating a significant price increase across the board on all herbicides in 2022. And it could possibly be double in price.
Is there a reason why you're anticipating that?
Just because of what we're going through this year. So we were lucky early enough to get our bids in and get them approved. And so we didn't have a huge price increase, just a couple cents here and there, and had our minimum quantities. But as we ordered that first set of minimum quantities, just so we could have a couple pallets to get us started early in the year, we received calls from our suppliers letting us know that you need to take all your product because, you know, if we hold on to it, you're not going to get it. And as those weeks went on, then we noticed the price increase. The explanation of the price increase is apparently, and I've learned a lot about chemicals and stuff over the last couple months, apparently the active ingredient is made overseas, shipped here and then mixed with all the other ingredients and then packaged and bottled. Well, they can't get the active ingredient from overseas. And so that's driving the price up and delivery of chemical not being able to be delivered. So
How much of that would be passed on to the consumer?
So on to the consumer, if it costs, just say for instance, for round numbers, my math's always horrible, but if it cost us $100, we cost share 25% of that the county has to pay, and so they would pay $75 for that chemical.
Okay.
So I did not note this increase in my budget simply because of the way our budget is designed from last year after kind of meeting with Betty and restructuring it. I don't believe this is going to be an impact for us. You know, our budget is equipped enough to handle that and then made back up through reimbursements as we sell chemical throughout the year. So I think we're going to be in good shape. The only thing that may hinder us a little bit is if they make us take all that chemical at once again. Our warehouse is pretty small and we were pretty packed to the ceiling. So, but we may do, and so if that happens, then we'll be okay. So, but on a cost standpoint, I think we're going to be great.
Okay.
John, do you have herbicides left over from year to year? I know that they've got to have a shelf life of some kind, but
There is actually herbicides left over at the end of the year. Typically, we like to carry about 2 pallets, which depending on the chemical, 180 gallons on a pallet or 192 on a gallon. We like to carry 2 in the warehouse just to give us that early step for anybody January through March that comes in and buys chemical to get started early on. So we have something to sell them. Shelf life, really, as long as you keep it from freezing, it's going to last.
okay.
So.
If you run out of space in the shop, are you able to utilize the Public Works North Health HHW hazardous waste? I mean, just because they've already got the certifications for chemicals.
As long as they would have containment for it, you know, I don't know what HHW's containment part is, but as long as they would have the appropriate containment in case something would happen. And in our case, it's very minimal because we buy in 2.5 gallon jugs. We don't buy shuttles. And so if a jug gets poked, it's only 2.5 gallons as opposed to a shuttle, you know, you could lose 1,000 gallons. And so if their containment's very minimal like ours is, then we would be fine.
I just don't, again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, my speculation is that you're going to be somewhat limited on the places that are already approved for hazardous chemicals.
We would actually, what the plan would be is just store the chemicals at our place and relocate our vehicles for the winter.
Okay.
You know, we have 3 bays there in the front. There is containment in the 1 bay, the floor slopes all that direction. So we would move out of the chemical warehouse space and into the truck storage space and then just relocate the equipment that's stored in there for the winter.
Gotcha.
So that's the plan.
All right.
Under challenges, I have staffing. Staffing is kind of my biggest challenge of them all. So just a lot of things go into that. You know, we have intermittent employees, the age of intermittent employees, not getting any applications for any. So staffing is a big one for me. Kind of a specialized field, and finding somebody that has some knowledge of spraying weeds is very rare. And then if you bring an intermittent in and by the time you teach them and get them all trained, that, you know, if they come back the following year, then you're kind of lucky. So
I mean, in the past, didn't it be kind of old public works employees that were looking for something extra to do, or?
well, like right now we had a gentleman that retired from the jail years ago. He's been there a few years, but you know, they're getting up there in age, Commissioner Cook, that, you know, it's kind of a liability if they get out of the truck and yet still perform some of their stuff. So
Yes.
you know, and we've reached out to Washburn and Washburn Tech and posted an ad there, and so, you know, they didn't turn up much success, but you know, we are trying everything we can to try to bring somebody in. So
Okay.
that is pretty much on it. I'd like to move over to CIP projects. Do you have any questions on the budget part?
No.
Okay. 2023 CIP project, our roof is, we've got a couple leaks in the roof. We've been having them worked on the last couple of years, and about the time I think we get them fixed, then it starts leaking again. So we put a roof overlay or replacement in there. You know, more likely it'll be a membrane that's overlaid on there. So looking into the future, then look to see that in 2023. And then 2024 is like a parking lot, for lack of words, repair, expansion, overlayment. So as you can see from the slide, all of our sprayers are kept in this one middle aisle that's what we use for rentals, and all the water flows right down the center. And so to gain access to those, we have to use our forklift, which is designed for hard surface pavement, and that being rock. So we get stuck quite a bit and have to pull it out. So we'd like to at least asphalt just down that center. The slide to the right at the top there, that's for employee parking lot. That it could stay gravel, and then and repair some deteriorated concrete there in the customer parking. And if, you know, everything goes right, then see if we could maybe get Kurt to help us design a little bit of a parking lot expansion. We've got about 3 spaces over there and 1 handicap space, and so we're kind of busy during the day, that if we could find another couple spaces would be great, but we're very limited on room. So
let me ask you on the parking lot thing. So I'm looking at the top left one. That's what you're referring to, that you guys get stuck.
yes.
So you're wanting to put basically an asphalt strip down the middle, or?
Yeah, between the building and the fence where those sprayers set.
Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to envision it. Maybe I need to come out there and take a look for myself.
Ideally, I'd love to do the whole parking lot, but it's kind of an expense that, for an employee parking over here, and, there's just storage in the back of the building, it seems like an expense that I don't want to incur just for, minimal use out of those. But this area here that we use daily, 20, 30, 40 times a day.
Okay.
But yeah, please feel free to come on out and take a look. It's,
Okay.
equipment refresh in 2022. So toward the end of this year, I was before you on April 19th of this year and got approval to purchase or lease a new spray truck. And so if we ever get a build date for that truck toward the end of this year, I would love to come in and get approval to put a new sprayer on that truck. So again, today I still don't have a build date for that, and it was approved in April. And the last talking to Troy over at Enterprise, I don't know. It could be spring of next year before it's delivered. 2025, this would be the last remaining roadside spray unit to be replaced. And again, at the same time, we'd like to do the truck and the roadside sprayer, and then all that roadside spraying unit would be refreshed and on the lease program. And in 2026, this is our chemical induction system. This is actually how we get chemicals mixed and then loaded into the trucks. Chemicals are put in those little containers there, and as water's pushed through that and put into the truck, it siphons that chemical out. As you can see, it's got numerous leaks and stuff, and we're looking at doing this, possibly doing this at the 4 public works facilities, to try to make us more efficient when we're out in the field spraying, that we don't have to drive all the way back to Topeka to be able to mix chemical, that we could go to the Public Works district shops and do it. So.
And I have a typo on this line of your CIP. I think I put land records, and that really would be capital outlay.
And I have a question on that, John.
Yes.
This equipment refresh and replacement here, is that out of your capital outlay fund or
Yes,
the
ma'am.
county's?
No,
Okay.
out of my capital.
That's what
Just
I
just the
thought.
2 CIP, the roof and the
Yes,
parking lot repair.
But the equipment would be out of
But the
yours.
equipment is out of my
Yeah.
capital
And-
outlay.
And
Yes.
commissioners, if he has anything in his budget at the end of the year, by statute, it can go into his noxious weeds equipment fund. And so these last 2 items that he's saying would be out of
Actually,
that.
the last 3, the sprayer in 2020, at the end of this year. So those 3 would be out of my capital outlay. I'm sorry, I should have explained that to you.
So on this item in particular, if it's leaking chemicals, are there environmental risks that we need to be concerned about?
It's just leaking water. It's
just
before
water.
the,
Okay, good.
it's at the top of the, at the top of the valves up there, so it's the water side, not the chemical side.
Okay, good.
So,
Just want-
and
Yeah,
this
can't
is
be
a
too
very
careful.
small component. It's not a huge cost associated with this, unless we try to expand to the district shops right away. And so this, I put in here, but, depending on where we're sitting at the end of this year, maybe next, if we're sitting pretty good, I'd probably just tackle this right away and remove it from there. But I wanted it in there just so you guys kind of seen what the plan and what my direction was.
And that's exactly what we want. We want to know of any and all things that might come up in the next 5 years.
This purchase is probably under $10,000, 10 or under. And so it was just more or less of, hey, this is the direction we're going. And with that, gentlemen, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
Not that I can think of.
John, going back to your staffing, you have 4 positions allocated at 13, 13,750 an hour? Is that-
Yeah, under our intermittents,
Yeah.
yes.
And you've got them down for working approximately a max of 1,100 hours.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then they would, how do you normally fill those positions? Just,
So for the last 2 years I've been here, Commissioner Cook, I've been fortunate enough to have the two gentlemen was here previously return. I can tell you this, when we advertised for those positions this year, it was late February, first part of March, and to this day, I've still not received my first application none. Nobody's applied. And so if it wasn't for those two, I would be in a pickle.
if you consider maybe talking with the Extension Council people to see if they know of a farmer or a farmhand or 4-H kid that, not kid, but somebody who's maybe on college.
Actually, we try to recruit all the guys that come in and buy chemical from us, a lot of the older retired guys to see, they have knowledge and see if they want to work a little part-time, and, we've just not had much luck.
What kind of training do they have to have, or certificates or anything do they have to have?
Well, with the intermittents, we haven't asked for them to have any licensing or anything. They work under my license, and so with the full-time applicator we require him to get certified in category 6 and 9 on a commercial spray license. And so really it's kind of, I take you out and give you the full rigmarole of it. By the time we make a whole pass around everything we do and talk about bare grounding versus broadleaf control and things like that, it's a month and a half of my time that I spend with them before they're turned loose on their own. So
I think you mentioned $13.75 an hour?
Yes.
It's $12.50 an hour.
No, it says, oh, okay. I was looking at,
If you look at the formula, it's $12.50 an hour.
all right,
that's how it's based, and then like the two gentlemen that come back, they make a little more than that, and then the entry-level position. So when we base the numbers on budget.
I was looking at Form B.
Yeah, and the formula is kind of odd, but if you take $12.50 times 1,100 hours, you get, it was 13 3/4 hours per pay period.
Oh, okay. Okay. So are you paying the intermittents more than $12.50 then?
The ones that have returned, yes. The ones that would start, that would be their start.
That may be one of the reasons why. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Is there an age requirement that you need in order for these intermittents, or is it something that maybe FFA groups might be able to help you with?
I believe 18 would,
That'd be an HR question.
yeah, that would be an
I'm sorry, I
HR
don't
question.
know.
I
Well,
believe
and
18 is.
I think 18 with chemicals and
Is it?
driving trucks.
Yeah, what you're doing is, you're doing a pretty chemicals and application and trucks and gear.
Yeah.
Do they have to have a commercial license?
They do not,
Do not?
no.
College kids seem to be the ideal, or somebody that's doing ag out at K-State.
Yeah, we've our CWA, DAK, we posted on there. All the things that I can think of, we've kind of reached out to them and let them know, but I just, I'm at a loss. I think a little bit has to do with wages. I think a little bit has to do with today's society and where we're at. I don't think you can lay blame on just one thing.
I think we have a number of people still getting paid to stay home, and that hurts. So.
Yes.
All right. Well, okay, well, that was the questions I had.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen.
Well, thank you, John.
And, 10 minutes till Public Works.
Okay, Commissioner Cook?
Yep. No, look, yep.
Yeah, that KU.
I don't like
I actually forgot about you, Commissioner Rip, on it, or I wouldn't have wore it, but I did it just to aggravate Kurt. Because I have to go to his office and look at his purple shoes sometimes.
I just don't know if we made any progress here.
Do you think less of me now?
Yes, it's fortunate,
What if we get you a booth
Yes,
at
he
the fair? A booth at the fair, like, John
we're
Fair.
not on, we're not broadcasting yet.
And those are great opportunities too.
So COVID is really, everything else is just kind of hindered us.
It's all sand where they live.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Well, you get around Pratt, that's all sand, but you go further west, they call it sandy loam, but I don't know, there's no sand, dirt.
All right, it is a little after 4 o'clock. We're here for the budget proposal of Public Works.
Right.
Kurt,
Okay.
take it away.
This isn't real pretty. It's going to be real brief. I hopefully touch on the most important issues. And but before I get started, I wanted to tell you that, did you know Shawnee County, the road system that we take care of consists of 289 miles of road. Lane miles, 615. So our job is a big job. It's an important job. And I'm really proud to be a part of it. And with that, let's get into this. I'm going to cover 7 topics. I got 7 slides, not counting the title slide. I'm going to talk about the proposed budget, equipment purchases for 2022, roads, bridge, large culvert, Sherwood. And then in 2026, since we're adding on, that's the 5th year of our 2022 CIP. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to talk about my goals for 2022. And then I'm going to talk about some projects that should additional money become available. Hint, hint to Betty or the commission. And then I'm going to talk about vacancies. Thank you for your understanding and interest. This is a busy sheet, but I want you to focus on the left side, to the left of the blank. And if you go down, let's see here, do I have a pointer here? If you go down to, really what it comes down to, my salary budget's going to go down by $2,200 in 2022 from 2021. My non-salary budget's going to go up $6,400 for a net of $4,250. That's all. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not benevolent. I didn't do this on purpose. The reason the reason my budget is actually going up by $4,000 is because we're changing the way we account in our budget. In the past, we did not budget for reimbursements, salary reimbursements. When we do work for Monmouth or Grove Township, we get reimbursed for those salaries. Okay, we never budgeted for them. But nevertheless, during the course of the year, when we did get reimbursed, those reimbursements came into essentially my operational budget, and they were a negative number. So they decreased my expenses. Well, this year, at the encouragement of Audit Finance, thank them for their help, we're going to start budgeting for these reimbursements. So, comparing apples to apples, if I had budgeted this year the same as I had budgeted the previous 3 years, my salary budget would have gone up by $91,000. Now, the reason for that is because, remember, we just came to a new agreement with the Teamsters, and we increased salaries somewhat significantly. I would like to think it was significant, and that accounts for most of that $91,000. Now, you'll also know that even though salaries would have gone up $91,000, my non-salary budget did not change because, again, it doesn't matter. We're talking about the salary budget. And then overall, I'd have gone up by almost $100,000. But again, we're not doing that way. We're changing the way we budget beginning this year, so my budget is only going up by $4,250. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with Betty. I agree with Jennifer. Anytime we can improve the way we budget, I'm all for it. But on the other hand, as a director, I've essentially lost $94,000. So, hey, I'm willing to do my part, so that's okay. The green up there at the top of the screen, I just wanted to tell you, hey, I move money around from year to year. I look at the past, I look at history, I put money where I think it needs to be. And since the day I've started here, Betty and I have talked, and we're trying to budget for what I think we're going to turn over to the following year. You know, we turn unobligated funds over to special machinery, special highway, and special bridge. And that's what I budgeted for. I increased that by $50,000 this year because I'm slowly trying to work my way to the point where I'm being realistic with these funds that we turn to the following year. So that, in a nutshell, is our budget. Shawnee County Public Works is increasing our budget from 2021 by a total of $4,250. Is that correct, Betty and Jennifer?
Your request is.
That's right.
Is increasing.
That's right. I'm just requesting. Yeah, it hasn't been approved. Okay, CIP equipment. This is kind of a different year for us. Again, I would like to have $300 in capital outlay to help pay for those expenses. The remainder will come out of special machinery. Right now, I have 9 motor graders. And I have 4 two-track loaders, 2-track excavators. I don't know why we have 9 motor graders. What I'd like to do is turn in 8 motor graders and buy 2 new motor graders. Keep the best motor grader of the 9 that we have now. So we'll end up in probably March of next year, maybe July, depending on how long this equipment takes, we'll end up with 3 motor graders. We have 9 now, we go to 3. Likewise, track excavators and track loaders. I'd like to turn 3 of those in as a trade-in on a new track excavator, and then keep 1 track loader, so we go from 4 tracked pieces of equipment to 2. So I'm really cutting our equipment needs. There'll be some perks associated with the new equipment. I'd like to buy on Sourcewell, the cooperative purchasing community. Again, we will trade in this existing equipment at a minimum trade-in value, and we'll have a warranty and maintenance program for this new equipment. And then if we get into something where we need more equipment, we can rent. We should have been renting a long time ago. So that's what I propose on the equipment side. Roads and bridges for 2022. Obviously, I'd like to start working on the second segment of Southeast 45th Street, preferably probably California to West Edge Road. 2022 will be Southeast Laurel Road will be under construction. South Topeka Boulevard over the Wakarusa will be scheduled for 2023, but we're going to spend money next year on design. And we'll have 2 culverts on Barrington Road under construction in 2022. Those costs have already been approved, so I didn't list those. Sherwood Pump Station, we'll have 6 pump station and collection system under construction in 2022. Those are all funded with our KDHE loan, which are paid back by user fees. And guess what? We're still waiting on to build this traffic signal improvements. We're waiting on railroad permits. We cannot get railroad permits from the BNSF. They have been very difficult to get railroad permits. We're still working with them. We hope we can get those in 2022. The project will not let till June of 2022. Now, CIP, going 2026, because that's the year we add on with our 5-year plan. Guess what? In 2026, I start thinking about our big Rochester Road project. We probably won't spend any money in 2026, but I want to have a consultant on board late in the year. That project's going to be huge, 3 miles, 3 lanes. We will not do any improvements to the bridge over Shunganunga Creek, but that will be a huge project, and we'll be thinking about it in 2026. We want to remove a bridge on Northeast Calhoun Bluff Road over Indian Creek. We'll be spending $90,000. I think that's a little low even for a bridge removal, but right now I've got $90,000 in there for construction engineering and contingencies. I'd like to replace a bridge on Southwest 69th. We'll budget approximately $760,000 for construction engineering and contingencies. I've got a large culvert, 2 of them, Northeast Kimball, Northwest 35th, and you can see the values that we have for construction, inspection, and contingencies. So that's for year 2026. Again, the reason I highlighted that is because that's theoretically a new year that we're adding on. Department goals, what I want to have done by December 31, 22, I want to have a second segment of Southeast 45th ready for an early 2023 bid letting. I want to have Laurel Road construction and done. I want to be ready to let the South Topeka Boulevard Bridge over the Wakarusa in late 2022. I would hope that the signal project is at least under construction. Again, that's a 90-10 project with KDOT. And it all stems on if we can get these railroad permits. We're going to make some changes in the plans so we can minimize our impact on the railroad. I told you about, signed up for a KDOT Shawnee County traffic safety study. This would be countywide. That will likely be in progress in 2022. All the pump stations at Sherwood and the collection system will be under construction. We want to have that ready for letting late this year. Shawnee County landfill, one of the things I'd like to get accomplished. Why are we mowing out there? We mow out there at least twice a year. We don't have time to mow out there. I want to start a haying contract. I want to start getting a private individual to hay out there, and we get proceeds. Not we, probably maybe the solid waste department, since they pay for the expenses out there. But before I can get that haying contract in place, I'm going to rely on this gentleman back here to kill all the noxious weeds. I cannot hay, we cannot honestly ask an individual to hay if there's noxious weeds out there. That would be a no-no, because that's a way to mix noxious weeds. So I'll be working with John. He already knows what I would like for him to do, and he's already got a plan in place to do that. Northwest 46, we start our first sales tax project, and we've got to have a design consultant on board by the end of 2022 so they can start design for 2023. Money will be available in 2023. And then as a maintenance project, I've talked about it before. Our original letting didn't go well, but I'd sure like to have all the concrete patching done on East 6th between Croco and the Oakland Expressway. If we wait and let that again in 2022, I'm going to try to do both the eastbound and westbound side. Okay, should money become available through some means, there's COVID money, there's supposedly the highway money. I don't know if any of that money will filter down to me or to Public Works. I'm really serious about getting a roundabout done at Southwest 29th and Auburn. I think a roundabout, possibly a signalized intersection at Southeast 45th and Shawnee Heights Road is something that's needed at some point. I'd like to do Southwest 21st Street from K4 out west to Indian Hills Road and finish that. Same way with 29th. I'd like to do 29th, 2 lanes right now, widen that from the new roundabout to Indian Hills Road. Topeka Boulevard. There was some talk about including that in this sales tax program. It didn't make the cut. It's going to need work. If we can't get to it sooner, and my advice would make it a sales tax project for the next sales tax program. And then contract maintenance, I like to do northbound Croco Road between I-70 and the I-470 bridges. That concrete out there is shot, needs to be replaced. Southbound Croco Road from 200 feet north of Sycamore, that's the interchange they have out there with Croco Road. It's in the same shape. I don't know why it's just southbound and northbound, but those are the sections that are bad. That needs to be replaced. Gary Ormsby Drive from Innovation Parkway to South Topeka Boulevard. We did west of Innovation Parkway a couple years ago. East of Innovation Parkway is going to need to be done. Part of that is shared with the city. Nottingham Road between Urish and Southwest 37th, it's going to need some kind of pavement reconstruction. So again, these are things that I'm thinking about for the future. Always, that doesn't, just because money doesn't become available doesn't mean we won't do these. It's just we won't be able to do them as soon as maybe I would like. Okay, here's my major concern going forward. This is a snapshot. This isn't my whole org chart. It's just a portion of it. Right now, these are road and bridge maintenance positions. There's some signing positions, some striping positions. I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll have 12 vacancies out of 33 positions here before long. Because the vacant traffic regulator position over to the left, that's going to be likely filled by one of my road and bridge maintenance folks. We recently, as I talked about early in my presentation, we've recently graded the salaries for the roads and bridge maintenance folks. But I have had absolutely no interest since then. We interviewed one gentleman, and unfortunately, he was not able to go to work for us because of a personal issue. So we really, the money's higher, we've increased their salaries, but there's really been no interest to fill these positions. As I've maybe hinted before, we're getting to the point where I think it's going to start affecting our ability to get some maintenance work done. So it's imperative. I don't need to fill every one of them. I'd like to fill half of them at least. But this is my critical concern going forward, is the number of vacancies I have in road and bridge. Now, I talked to one of the townships recently, and surprisingly, our starting salary for individuals with a Class B CDL is approximately $15.02 an hour. I'd say it's approximately, it's exactly $15.02 an hour. Williamsport Township is hiring at $16 to $19 an hour. They recently hired someone at $18 an hour. He lasted 6 weeks. He went to work in Osage County for one of the townships at $22 an hour. So I'm hopeful that the salary studies maybe shows that maybe we're still lagging behind on competitive salaries for these positions. But nevertheless, whatever, I think our fringe benefits are great. I don't have any complaints. I think young people, they look at salary mostly, fringe benefits aren't as important to them. But I think our fringe benefits are fine. I don't have all the answers, but I think salary is quite important. Yes, there's a lot of people still sitting at home, whether they live with their parents and choose not to work, or they're being paid to stay at home. I don't know, but we've got a lot of positions to fill, and that's where we're at. So with that, take your questions.
Kurt, the open positions you have, wage study, I'm sure will ferret out some of the information we need about what our salary, where we stand. Are you looking at a lot of retirements, or?
I didn't include a slide. Last year I did, but for the sake of time, I didn't include a slide. If you look at the age of our employees, we have a group of employees in their late 50s, including myself. We have, I think, 3 or 4 people just in our office that are all approximately the same age as I. I think the problem is, I call it gap-graded experience. We've got an older group, they've been here for a long time. It's likely that this group will retire at approximately the same time. We have very little people that have been here, the mid-level, maybe 10, 15 years, and then we have a lot of young people. So that's what I see as a future problem related to positions, is all of a sudden, you're going to lose a number of people at about the same time.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah.
On your CIP request,
Yes, sir.
we heard this morning about the aerial truck that was being delayed until 2022. We hear from the weed director about the equipment delays, for equipment that he wants to get. We hear about components that are waiting on parts from overseas. How realistic is it that if you have your grader turn in, you're going to be able to get the graders turned in? Or
I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to do something a little different this year. Once our budget is approved in late August, before September 1, I would like to get this equipment ordered. And it does 2 things. It brings this equipment in 2022. It gets us a head start on getting this equipment ordered. We won't pay for it till 2022 because it won't be here before 2022. And probably most important is I've been talking to the heavy equipment folks. And heavy equipment is going up in price substantially. There's been a number of price increases. I missed one this year, and it'll cost us $10,000 for just 2 motor graders. So I If I can get a budget approval and then get your approval to enter into a contract for this equipment and all these trade-ins, I can avoid any future price increases.
Okay.
So I'm going to be coming to you, assuming that everything works out schedule-wise, I'm going to be coming to you on August 26th, commission meeting, with permission to enter into a contract to buy this heavy equipment for delivery at some point in 2022. The reason, again, is for the delay in deliveries and to protect us from price increases.
Okay. Well, the only other question I had is, when you were talking about Northwest Rochester, starting to look at that one.
The project from hell?
Yes. Well, there's a reason why it was put at the end of the sales tax, because we knew how big of a project it was going to be. Are you thinking just the surveying? Are you looking at right-of-way easement purchases?
We're going to, beginning in 2027, we'll bring a consultant on board in late '26. Beginning in 2027, when funds are available, we'll start design work. Then we'll start right-of-way acquisition, and that is going to be a bear. And then we'll start utility reconstructions. I think this is going to be a 3-year construction project, and we'll probably stagger the job. So the year that we're doing maybe utility relocates in one section, we'll be doing, once we're doing construction in one section, maybe we can be doing utility relocations in another section. It'll be kind of a staggered effect. Now, we won't be able to do that on everything because, a water line continues on, and I can't just stop a water line at this point. It has to continue on to a connection point. But I'm hoping that we can have multiple segments at various points of completion as we go along, because the project is huge. It's going to take 3 years, and so we got to be able to start work on that. And I think we'll let the project all at once, don't get me wrong. It's just going to be phased over a 3-year period. And the road is going to be closed to construction. We have to provide local access, yes. But I think the plan, when that cost estimate, $12.7 million, was budgeted, it was assuming the road would be closed. Now, maybe if we do it in sections, we don't have to close the whole road, just a section, maybe. But again, people are going to be able to get local access. We've got to be able to provide that. So it's going to be a heck of a project. I've talked about it before. Betty's kind of come back and told me, don't worry about the money that's available through the sales tax program. They were very conservative when they generated their costs and how they figured everything. My concern is I'm always afraid that construction costs are going to outstrip even the conservative way they approach the sales tax program. That's what's got me scared. And so
I know that the concern I have is, right now, I don't know that many or really any of the residents on Rochester Road are really aware that this is coming.
well, then you bring up another good point. Normally, when we bring a consultant on board, we bring them on for design, construction engineering, and things like that. This project is special. And a special component, when we bring a consultant on board, we are going to have a component in there for public involvement. This project is too involved, it impacts way too many people. We're going to have a public involvement component for this project. That means public meetings, maybe updates from time to time. We have, this project is not like 45th Street where we're only impacting less than 10 people, along the road. I mean, we've got a detour, but I mean people that use 45th Street to gain access to the public road system. We've got a tremendous number of people that will be impacted.
And Commissioners, just so you're aware, this is a road project that will go from just north of the Walmart Dillon's all the way up to the roundabout just before you get to the Seaman High School.
50th Road,
Or
just
50th,
at the
about-
north end of Seaman.
2.5, 3 miles?
Yeah, 15, a little over 3
And
miles.
it's the bridge over Soldier Creek there too, right?
Yes,
Yeah, but-
and the biggest part is taking it from a 2-lane to a 3-lane, which means you're gonna have, taking a lot of yards. And it's gonna have a lot of people that their front yard is gonna go from a big front yard to something that looks like Gage Boulevard or 21st Street.
Would there be stormwater?
Harold.
We're gonna probably have curb and gutter,
Gonna mess up Harold's
so the
business.
stormwater will be underground. That'll save us some space. 'cause
There's a
yeah.
lot of, steep ditches
Yeah.
along there that.
Yeah, that'll save us some space, but you still have to have room for pipes and things like that.
Sure.
Aaron, to answer your question, right now, we don't think that bridge over Soldier Creek, we're not gonna do anything to that bridge.
Well, that's good.
That'll be expensive. And remember, a good part of this project is in the city of Topeka, but that's okay, because this was a joint county, city of Topeka sales tax program. So the fact that we're gonna be doing some of this project within the city limits of Topeka is okay. But we have no plans to do any work to that bridge over Soldier Creek.
Kurt, I have a little bit of a concern with the 45th Street, just in, I mean, is that gonna be a complete closure as well?
You know,
Because I mean, those folks, they've just gotten through the 29th Street project. Now they've got the closure on 45th currently.
yeah.
To give them only 1 year off before we close it again is concerning to me.
Yeah, you can look at it two ways. Do you want to get it over soon, or you want to extend it out? I can always, we can always give them a longer break, and I can focus on something else for a change.
I think that would be my preference, because I also know the city of Topeka is doing California between 45th and 37th.
And they're supposed to be done next year. So
Okay.
if we want to do another segment of 45th in 2023, we've been working with the city to stagger these jobs. So,
I just, I worry that the residents out there, especially even the commuters, because we do have quite a few people that come through on 45th Street, that I think there's going to be some angry folks if we only give them 1 year outcome without a major construction project.
these are all subject to availability of funds. When 45th Street, what we're working on now is done, I don't know how it's going to go as far as funds collection. I've told you that I have to spend projects on new construction, but I also have to maintain what we have.
Yeah.
And like on South Topeka Boulevard, I just spent almost $700,000. So we may not have enough money to do another segment of 45th in 2023. We're just going to have to see.
Okay.
But I'm aware of your concerns, and
I want to talk about the pump stations out at Sherwood. It looks like you have 22, we have 6 pump stations, collection systems. Will some of this project be eligible for our money that we're getting? Maybe that's a any question.
Well, it's a more complicated question than that, because one of the things that we've looked at is that, right now, I think the resolution as it reads for that is, all fee-based.
Okay.
And is that something that you want to change? That it would have to be a decision too.
I just don't know if we
And I
have
don't
any
know
other
if, I don't know if
projects.
it qualifies. We'd have to look at the details on it. There's a possibility of that. There's also there's also other monies that's coming about. There's a large transportation bill that's coming, that maybe coming. I don't know what all is included in that. And even within the ARPA, there's other buckets besides what comes to the county that also includes some infrastructure that, that Sherwood project may qualify also. So there's a lot of different.
If that infrastructure bill goes through, how do they usually disseminate that money? Is it through KDOT, or does that go to
if
county?
it's federal dollars,
Generally,
To
it'll go
KDOT?
through KDOT.
Now, see, this ARPA was unique in the fact that each county
Right.
got the money directly, and that's not generally the way it goes. Generally, it would go through the
Well,
state.
just for the small segment
Just,
that they've already
yes,
done.
and just for that one piece, yeah.
Okay.
Generally, it would go through KDOT.
Yeah, Betty and I have talked about that, and the big issue is getting around the user fee requirement.
Okay.
You know, we definitely could use that money to upgrade the treatment plant out there, but whether it's, you know, it's
Well,
available to us or
you
not.
know, so we wouldn't have that money to use somewhere else because it's fees, so.
Right.
I mean, unless there's something else out there that we need to upgrade, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the work out at Sherwood never ends. We get these KDHE loan projects done. That's not the end. We have to stay on it. I don't want us to get in the same spot we have been. We gotta stay on it, talk to the city of Topeka. They operate the system. They know where the next need is.
If we were to get some of this infrastructure money, if it goes through, what are you looking at? You're looking at your future plans and trying to
Yeah.
bump things
That's why I
up?
kind of hinted there that if money became available, that's where I'd like to spend some money. I'll be honest with you, I think Topeka Boulevard's probably too big to bite off now. We wouldn't want to do that till Rochester Road is done anyway. But I sure would like to get a roundabout done at 29th and Auburn Road. I mean, that's probably going to be a $3 million job. And so there's, as you know, I can find ways to spend money.
Well, I suppose a lot of that money would just go to KDOT for their projects as well.
Well, yeah, some of that money is gonna go directly to KDOT, and how much filters down to the county, I don't
Sure.
know. Yeah. I do know I'm getting $300,000 from local projects. They announced that 3 or 4 months ago. But I haven't seen it yet, and I don't know when I will see it. So,
Yeah, Kurt, the traffic signals, I know you said we're waiting on BNSF. My understanding is that you almost have to order mast arms for stoplights years in advance now. Are we prepared that if we ever get approval from BNSF to move forward?
we're
Or?
ready to go.
Okay.
KDOT's ready to go. All we need is those permits from the railroad.
Okay.
Again, the letting's been moved to June. Once I get those permits, I'll be coming to you for approval, and we can move forward with a June 22 letting and get this project done. But you're right, the lead time on structural steel and things like that is, you know, it's out there.
Yeah, and then Nottingham Road between Urish and 37th. It's my understanding that the Sherwood is interested in also putting in some sort of a trail type sidewalk out there for safety concerns. Are you aware of that?
I haven't heard anything. I would prefer that it would be on private property, but, well, you know, I'm willing to work with them and see what, we don't have a lot of right-of-way out there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Jim is, he works with them, and so I think it might be good for him to put you in touch with the engineers out there and just make sure that you're aware of everything before we get into doing any kind of planning. So,
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry I went a
Nope.
few minutes over.
I'm sure is the Conservation District out in the hall? Yep. Tell Wayne to come on in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
thanks, Kurt.
Hey, Wayne.
Here's contracts.
You guys didn't want to sit through the public works hearing?
You're on.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm RJ Dake. I'm the chairman of the Conservation Board. And Jay LeBron is our district manager. Wayne Luker.
Wayne Luker, serve on the board of supervisor of Shawnee County Conservation District.
So I'll invite them to be here and participating as we go through as much as I can offer any information. You have a little bit of our information there. Had a moment to review? Okay. Well, we appreciate you supporting Shawnee County Commission or constituents' efforts to conserve natural resources, promote healthier soil and water. You know, it's a long-standing tradition and it's a good one. It's something that's very important county, state, nationally. So we appreciate the support that we've gotten here and want you to know that. One of the things that came up in the last few years is the old world blue stem control and the roadsides, how they're mowed and the chemical applied has been a definite plus. If you're in the hay business like I am, you kind of look over the fence and go, okay, hope it looks clean when I come by. So it's appreciated that those kinds of efforts that you make support a lot of the things that farmers, that community people do here in Shawnee County. So we also serve on the Water Restoration Protection Strategies stakeholder leadership teams, and those would be Middle Kansas RAPS, Francis and Chaley, along with Commissioner Rapon, are on that group, and Upper Wakarusa, Wayne and Chaley are part of that. The district will sponsor some high school students to arrange a youth camp this summer. And Chaley serves on the Committee for Kansas Envirothon, a high school competition concentrating on environmental issues and natural resources. It's a great educational opportunity to bring kids up to speed and to engage them in a place where we want them to be, and hopefully you do too. We've been working with other agencies when possible on virtual education events. We're planning some workshops and demonstrations on soil health through no-till, cover crops, grazing management, as well as boosting some urban conservation awareness. Large field day for 4th grade education is scheduled for September, and it's held in Topeka. District gained some technical assistance to address some non-agricultural requests and to help federal partner in natural resources conservation late in the 2020 year. And this helps meet our partnership agreement for office space and so forth. We are a partner with the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the Farm Service Agency. They're both located in the USDA Service Center here in Topeka. And hopefully you can come by sometime, just say hello. The state typically approves less than $25,000 for matching funds. The point of this is that the county is not expected to fund everything. We have applied for grants from other sources where and when we can get them and when they're available. One of the things that we have is a no-till drill. It's operated by the district and it's rented to landowners. When you talk no-till, when you talk some of those opportunities, that no-till drill makes quite a difference. The district has updated all educational models, including a stream trailer utilized by the district as well as other agencies in and out of the county. The district's state cost share dollars benefited Shawnee County residents a total of $22,196.23, with $14,000 allocated this past fiscal year, and federal cost share dollars in Shawnee County for the amount of $142,307.43. That makes for a grand return of Shawnee County's investment in our agency. We appreciate your willingness to consider a $3,000 increase for 2022. I'm sure you've heard lots of fiscal reasons from many of your constituencies about increases, and we're among them. So our Board of Supervisors are myself, R.J. Dake. David Dremel is our Vice Chair. Francis Kelsey, our Treasurer. Michael Bassett is a member. Wayne Lukert is a member. And our staff is Shaylee Braun and Dennis Brinkman, who is our district technician. So at that point, I open for questions and see how much I can rely on my assistants here, and appreciate your input.
So RJ, I know that you have the main increases in your wages and salaries, but then there's also a $1,000 increase, or actually $2,000 increase on travel expenses. Is that because you're looking at, we didn't do any travel in 2020, so we're trying to catch up into 2022?
Yeah, we're not on lockdown anymore.
Okay.
So,
And then I also note that you've got a pretty significant cut on information and education, where you're basically cutting that in half.
it'd be great if that were an opportunity to grow, but we tried to be as concise as we could and as conservative as we could in our asks of you. So with that in mind, those are things that we can always expand upon when
Now-
opportunities come up.
Is the information and education, the work that you do out in the communities, is that where that comes in?
Let me draw these guys into
Yeah.
the conversation just a little bit more in that.
Yeah.
That's correct. We not only educate children, high schoolers, am I going to be up here?
Yep.
Children, high schoolers, and adults as well. We try to have different workshops throughout the year for all ages,
Okay.
so.
As it, like the $3,000 increase that we are asking, most of that is going for, use for our employees, because we had lost a technician. We didn't have one for a while. We have a technician now to use to help pick up the slack on there. We'd love to have more, but you can never have enough for technical assistance. The other things that we can do with workshops, one of the deals in our enterprise fund, we got a $5,000, little over plus bonus when the Mid-America Association of Conservation Districts, we were very active in that. When that organization closed down, the last man standing, we split the pot, and we got over 5,000 came to Shawnee County. And that was funds that we used that organization to put on sediment and erosion control workshops here in Shawnee County and around for low-cost workshops. And now they will not be able to do that, and we'd like to use that money towards those workshops
Okay.
for there. And then, of course, it's also education of ourselves as well as education of other patrons of the district, anybody that's concerned with natural resource conservation that we would work with for plat reviews, contractors, farmers, anything like that.
Okay.
And I would add that one of the reasons why we are still standing in that environment is because we have people committed to participating. So that participation has an impact on our access to those things.
One other thing I might mention, and I really appreciate you guys' interest in being on one of those RAPS committees, serving on those. And that's sort of the big thing, that the way they're channeling their federal money and some state money, most of the federal EPA money, the 319, is coming into Kansas and coming to Shawnee County through those RAPS programs. So it's in our interest as a conservation district to be at that table to represent Shawnee County. And it also kind of boosts it a little bit if we have like one of you guys there. But to me, if you got your support for us to be there, that's the big thing, as long as we're there to get our interest represented for Shawnee County.
A lot of people probably don't understand what RAPS does. You know, it all affects our water quality in the Kansas River, the water we drink, and they're always continuously monitoring how much bacteria and stuff's in the water, and working with farmers and ranchers on runoff and what they can do to mitigate some of those situations, and it benefits all of us eventually once it hits the Kansas River. So.
And it's not just for agriculture too, it's all, for the urban area. And
Right.
everything that they do and everything that a conservation district does helps this county comply with the Federal Clean Water Act. And I was told this by somebody who worked for EPA, so. Anyway.
Mays?
Nothing from me.
You sure on?
I think I'm done.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
Well, we appreciate you hearing us out
Yeah.
and the support that we've gotten in the past and look forward to our future.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
You have a great afternoon.
You too. All right, we'll be back at it tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got all morning tomorrow?
8:30 to noon.
All right.
I'll have to bring some extra coffee with me.
Oh,